What is up, guys? It's me, the ALE Prince, and I'm here to do a ranking. Yes, I haven't done one of these in a while. The last time I did that, I believe, was the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. And to this day, I have yet to review Spider-Man Far From Home, but eventually it will come down some way, shape, or form. Anyways, this ain't about Spider-Man, this ain't about Marvel Cinematic Universe, this ain't about Cobra Kai, which conveniently had their trailer, this ain't about Naruto. We're still talking about wrestling. Um, and it's time to rank all 30 NXT takeovers. Honestly, there wasn't really a bad one. There was just a lot of pretty like mediocre ones at best. But for the most part, they were all pretty good. What made takeovers so great is that they weren't like all the time. Imagine if they had like 12 takeovers a year. That would have overtired the hell out of everybody. And yeah, thankfully they did not go that route. They actually stuck to just doing like 5 or 4 each year. So I'm gonna rank all of them from 30 to 1. And we start off with NXT Takeover London. Yes, NXT Takeover London is my least favorite takeover. One of them had to be at the bottom. A lot of people really, really like this show, but I don't see it. There's really nothing that stuck out for me, really. I'm looking at the card as we speak. Um, Honestly, I looked at the post show, like the matches that weren't aired on Takeover, but those were better. Like Sami Zayn came back, Elias before he was better on the main roster. And we even had American Alpha and Blake and Murphy, which sounds pretty cool. Anyways, but what we did get was a pretty solid match between Asuka and Emma. We had the Revival before they were called the Revival. They were called the Mechanics back in the day, which is stupid. Versus Enzo and Cass, which honestly, those Enzo and Cass are gonna go down as one of those great tag teams that never won the belts. Like there's a few crime times. Rest in peace, Shaq Gaspard. If you want to be technical, the Rockers, because they never included their official win from the Hart Foundation, or trying to think of some other tag teams. But yeah, those are definitely gonna be the guys that people are gonna remember. Wow, imagine if they won the belts. But yeah, Corbin and Apollo Crews. You can imagine how lame that sounds. Thankfully, isn't like modern day Baron Corbin. This was like when he was the lone wolf, when he was a badass. Bailey and Nia Jax. The match wasn't that bad, but pretty dull to say the least. Nothing to run home about. And then Balor and Joe main evented. Uh, Around this time, Samoa Joe was main eventing every single takeover, which was boring and annoying. Because let's be honest, his matches weren't that great. Like his NXT run was like kind of boring to say the least. Like his run in the WWE main roster was better than his entire run in NXT, and yeah, really nothing special came out of this one. So that's why it's pretty low for me. NXT Takeover San Antonio comes in at 29. Not quite the last one. Um, Really, this one. Um, it wasn't bad necessarily. Like I said, none of these takeovers are bad. The problem with this one is that around this time, 2016 was a pretty um, disappointing year for NXT, considering the fact that they lost almost their entire roster during the draft, so they had to pull the best that they could and try to like develop everybody, because you kind of had like a bunch of filler matches that no one will remember, like Eric Young, Ty Dillinger, Roderick Strong, Almas, AOP, and DIY, which was actually a pretty good match. The only good singles DIY match we'll get to. We'll get to the ones where it was them, DIY, and the Revival pretty soon. And then the Fatal 4-Way with Asuka. I like the story with this one. Just three girls bullying Asuka. Asuka said, "Give me a match." With who? All of them. That was a great, that was a funny feud. Not a funny feud, but it was like great how it was like pulled off. And it was just filler just before we got Asuka and Ember Moon for WrestleMania season. And then this is the one where Bobby Roode won his first ever NXT championship, which was glorious. And again, really, other than the main event, there was nothing good to run home about. The only thing, honestly, around this time, WWE, like Raw and SmackDown, were doing way better than NXT. Not just rating wise, but like watchability and TV quality. Raw and SmackDown were doing way much better. Number 28, NXT Takeover Fatal 4-Way. Fatal 4-Way is the second takeover ever. Really, the only thing people remember about this was Adrian Neville, Sami Zayn, Tyson Kidd, and Tyler Breeze when he was still awesome. This was one of the greatest Fatal 4-Ways, and this is definitely going to go down in top 10 Fatal 4-Ways of all time. Charlotte and Bayley had a good match too. Actually, a pretty solid match. They've had better matches in the main roster, but really those two are the only things to run home about. And that is crazy that this in any situation this should have been last, but that Fatal 4-Way was so strong because we had squash matches. We had the debut of Kenta. Oh, I'm sorry, Hideo Itami after beating the crap out of the Ascension, even though they lost to the Lucha Dragons. Just earlier in the show, they actually opened the show and ended. I believe up to now, the Ascension is still the longest reigning NXT Tag Team Champions, and no one has yet to break that record. Undisputed Era could have done it. Imperium could have done it. They just lost them to Breezango. Spoilers for anyone who didn't watch NXT. But yeah, I would have done. Yeah, there was really nothing to. Really, if I were you guys, I would just watch that Fatal 4-Way. It was that Fatal 4-Way alone is definitely worth your money, but it doesn't save an entire show. 27. This is gonna be maybe a controversial one, because some people really like this show. I didn't. NXT Takeover in Your House. I get the nostalgia that they were trying to do of like, because this is the first ever NXT Takeover during the pandemic that's going on right now. Um, but there was nothing great. I thought Keith Lee and Johnny Gargano was highly overrated. The people are saying that this is like a 5-star classic. This was not. This was like okay at best, and sometimes big guy little guy chemistry does not work in this one. Um, and what excited me the most, like I remember during the build up to this show, the cruiserweight division was doing way much better. They were like redeveloping the cruiserweight division. Honestly, they should have done Hijo del Fantasma versus Drake Maverick here. It wouldn't be a better match, but it would have been pretty good. Balor just turned babyface out of nowhere. Um, Priest and Balor was a good match, not a great match, but definitely put Damian Priest where he is. A random 6-women tag team match. Really, it was just to lead up to LeRae and Mia Yim at the Great American Bash, which is way much better than this show. This was the last time we saw Velveteen Dream before he came back, turned heel. And people remember this for being Dexter Lumis' arrival, like to like go after the Undisputed Era, which fell flat easily. This is Karrion Kross's debut. Beating Tommaso Ciampa in a quick squash, which is honestly the highlight of the entire show for me. But if I were realistic, the best match of the night for me, because a lot of people hate this match, is Io Shirai, Charlotte Flair, and Rhea Ripley, the main event. That was the only thing that I truly cared about because it was Io Shirai's moment, who I, for years, have said that this woman is a better wrestler than Kairi Sane. I don't have any videos to prove it, but I knew who Io Shirai was, and I didn't know if she was like women's division ready for the WWE, but she is doing the best she can. She is up to this point the NXT Women's Champion, so there's that I like. Next up, 26 is NXT Takeover Respect. This one was really famous for one match. Like I said, sometimes one match shows don't save an entire show. However, this one, the mid card division wasn't that bad. This was more popular for the Dusty Rhodes Classic and the Iron Women match, which wasn't really an Iron Women match. I'm sorry, it should have been it really should have been a 1 hour match. Like Iron Man matches should always be an hour. I get why they did it 30 minutes, but really an hour is an Iron Man match. That's where like the peak is. It was still a fantastic match. Bailey and Sasha Banks are clearly like masters. They have amazing chemistry. Just give us a damn match already, WWE. Why are they taking so long to give us the proper build and match? Anyways, so there's that. Then there's what's this, Balor and Joe winning the Dusty Rhodes Classic, beating Rhino and Baron Corbin. We also had Apollo Crews and Tyler Breeze, which I forgot. I just read it right now. But why didn't they just do Tyler Breeze and Baron Corbin, the two top heels at NXT at the time, and then we do Apollo Crews versus somebody else? I don't know. Maybe Apollo Crews versus Rhino. Then he would have really been over, beating an ECW legend. Um, oh, and then this was also the debut of Asuka versus Dana Brooke. It was a quick squash. That was fine. It was good for her to have like a squash match for once. A little change of pace. Next up, coming in at number 25, NXT Takeover Chicago 2. The second NXT Takeover that took place in Chicago. This is a very underrated NXT Takeover. For starters, we had the the debut of like Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly as a tag team defending the belt against Danny Burch and Oni Lorcan, aka the 1-2 gang. Um, this was a very underrated match, probably the most underrated NXT Takeover match ever. Like nobody ever brings this match up, and it's a really good match. Ricochet and Velveteen Dream was a bit disappointing. I didn't like it as much as other people did. It was pretty spot festy. The only thing I really liked about the match was Velveteen Dream dressed as Prince Puma from Ricochet's Lucha Underground days. Shayna Baszler beat Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross was heading to SmackDown anyway, so it was like just there. Aleister Black versus Lars Sullivan. I'm like, come on. They really didn't have anything for Aleister Black. You gotta be kidding me. And then we had Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Arguably, like, their best match. Some people say the unsanctioned match. Some people even say the Backlog Brawl that we had earlier this year. The Last Man Standing, nobody really liked that match. I mean, they did like it, but they didn't like it as much as the other ones. But this one might be my favorite. Not the best, my favorite. Just because it had that epic spot of, like, Johnny Gargano having a chair over his head and throwing into the ring. This one was more like classic, old school, like, wrestling. This one, if the one in New Orleans wasn't gonna give us blood, this one deserved blood. I don't know why they didn't go that far, but you take what you get. Next up, NXT Takeover Toronto. Like I said, 2016 was a pretty weak year for NXT, considering the fact that most of their talents were moved up to the main roster. But it gave us the perfect 10. Ty Dillinger. This is a perfect match where the heel, where the loser still looks strong. Bobby Roode did his best to make Ty Dillinger look like at least an upper mid carder, which I respect Bobby Roode for doing. We had another Joe and Nakamura match, which this is the one where Joe won just so Nakamura could drop it or win it in Japan, which was a cool moment for Nakamura, but it was like unnecessary. If they were gonna do that, why don't they just have I don't know, Joe and Itami or something? Like, I don't know. Joe and Nakamura, the build was good. Like, the promos were good. They did their damnedest to make this watchable. But it was just so, like, I don't know. These guys just have pretty disappointing chemistry. Matter of fact, Asuka didn't have any opponents to have, so they brought in Mickie James. The original plan was Trish Stratus, but she was pregnant. This is a fun fact. That no one remembers. The Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic was a big disappointment. Austin Aries got injured. They played off a story of DIY, or the Revival not wanting to face DIY. They did the best that they could, because the Dusty Rhodes finals were AOP and TM61. Keep that in mind. Those were the final two. That is a little sad, to say the least. But people really remember this match for having arguably one of, if not the greatest tag team match in NXT history. DIY versus the Revival in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT Tag Team Championship. That alone is the only thing worth watching at this takeover. So there's definitely that to watch. Probably the only thing to watch. Next up, from WrestleMania season, NXT Takeover Orlando. This one was special for NXT fans because they didn't have to go anywhere. They were already in Orlando, so it's like the home of NXT is gonna be where it takes place. So that's pretty cool. And they did a pretty good job of building this show. Sanity was like killing it, so they got like 3 mid carders to go against Sanity. They got Ty Dillinger, Roger Strong, and at the time No Way Jose, but they played off an injury story, which brought in Cassius Ohno. This should have been Cassius Ohno's debut, not his match with Bobby Roode. This really should have been his debut. And then Ruby Riott also debuted on this show, so that was pretty cool. Black and Almost, not the championship match, but the debut of Aleister Black was here, which was a cool match. Honestly, very underrated match. Asuka and Ember Moon had a disappointing match, but we get a classic one at Brooklyn 3 later. Rude and Nakamura, the rematch, and Shinsuke Nakamura's farewell, but the real show stealer was AOP, Revival, and DIY. I like that the Revival and DIY teamed up to take on AOP, but then eventually their rivalry crashed. Personally, I would have done AOP do like a 4-on-2 handicap match. That would have been a pretty cool way of having this match come about. And then they beat him. That would have been pretty badass for AOP, but you take what you got. And that is honestly another match that people forget about. At the time, it was like a classic, and now people really don't talk about it, especially because people hate AOP. But at the time, AOP was awesome. What was missing? Would it be Paul Ellering? You're damn right. That's the reason why they failed. 22 is the most recent takeover there is. NXT Takeover 30. A lot of people really like this show. I didn't like it. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it's like it wasn't the best for me. I don't know why I keep complaining about this, but we should have gotten Lee, Cole, Gargano, Balor, 2 out of 3 falls, winner, first fall, North American Championship, second fall, NXT Championship. I know I keep harshing on that, but we really should have gotten that instead of what we got. Which, unfortunately, as of recording, Karrion Kross has just vacated his belt. And now to give us the match that we wanted, we're getting Cole, Gargano, Balor, and the returning heel, Tommaso Ciampa, in a 60-minute Iron Man match. Now we're getting legit Iron Man matches, which could be interesting, especially because they're going to Tuesday. I guess the Wednesday Night Wars are over for good this time. So there's that. But yeah, really the only thing I liked about this show was the build for Io and Dakota Kai. Everything else was like take it or leave it. The ladder match was cool, but it was like similar to most matches. Karrion Kross and Keith Lee was a bit disappointing and too long. Yeah, honestly, they did the best for their 30th takeover. So I can't really fault them. They did the best they could. But number 21. Sorry about that stupid phone call. Those goddamn people need to stop calling me. But number 21 is NXT Takeover Brooklyn 2. Yes. This one was famous for Bayley's farewell, Shinsuke Nakamura winning the big one, Bobby Roode's debut, Hideo Itami finally hitting the GTS. I'm gonna turn this off. Yeah. Hideo Itami hitting the GTS for the first time. I don't know why they did No Way Jose versus Austin Aries. They should have just done Hideo Itami and Austin Aries if that was the case. That would have been a much better match. Ember Moon's debut against Billie Kay before she was iconic. And the first Revival and DIY match. This one was very underrated too. Like this one was so like a classic match, and then they had the 2 out of 3 falls, which was even better. So like imagine that shit. Um, like this match alone, like you can say this match alone is worth the money, but if you watch the rest of the show, it had some good moments, some good matches, and honestly, it was still a ton of fun. And even though we didn't get Austin Aries versus Hideo Itami, we did get Austin Aries and No Way Jose, which is the only No Way Jose match that is watchable. Uh, so just pointing it out though. So if there's any No Way Jose fans, um, so watch that. This one, holy shit, number 20, and this shocks me how low this is because I really love this takeover for one match specifically. But number 20 is NXT Takeover Unstoppable. NXT Takeover Unstoppable. Why am I shocked this is this low? Well, uh, it's a very interesting one. I remember we had a Balor. It was supposed to be Finn Balor, Tyler Breeze, and Hideo Itami, where Hideo Itami got injured, and we never found out who the hell took him out. It could have been Finn Balor, it could have been Samoa Joe, it could have been Kevin Owens. We never knew who the hell it was. But anyways, we got Balor and Tyler Breeze, which was a pretty solid match. The entrances themselves were fucking amazing, and they put in effort with those entrances. So kudos for that. We also had Charlotte and Bayley versus Dana Brooke and Emma. I would have had Emma and Dana Brooke win, and then Charlotte and Emma and Bayley could do something else. Baron Corbin and Rhino, I forgot about this. Yeah, there's a couple of forgettable things, but the reason why this one is this high is because it gave me the match that made me fall in love with Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks for the NXT Women's Championship. This is another definition of when you lose and you still look strong. Becky Lynch had that match. Um, Before the Golden Role Models, which are Bayley and Sasha Banks right now, there was Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, and they basically were the modern version of the Golden Role Models. So there was that, which I really really enjoy. Um, and then Becky's got tired of Sasha Banks' push, and then she just kind of wanted revenge on Sasha for costing her the match at the Fatal 4 Way. It was just a perfect story. It was a simple story, and it just pulled off and be one of my favorite matches. And even though Becky Lynch lost, after this, I said, this is my favorite horsewoman. Out of the 4 horsewomen, this is my favorite one. For years, I've said this, and I said, this woman is going to go places in the main roster. I didn't know she was going to be the main event team WrestleMania and shit like that, but hell, she did it. She busted her ass off and she did it. And oh yeah, did I forget? Samoa Joe debuted on this show after the match between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, which ended in no contest, which is a perfect way to end it. So sometimes moments are more important than matches. I always say that, and this had some amazing moments to say the least. And yeah, I enjoyed a lot of their moments. Again, my favorite women's match, one of my favorite women's matches ever. Not my favorite, but one of. And like I said, it made me fall in love with Becky Lynch's work in the ring. NXT Takeover at the end. Stupid ass name. One of the dumbest names for a takeover. It was supposed to be NXT Takeover. Uh, what the heck was it? Revenge. It was NXT Takeover Revenge, but then they changed it to NXT Takeover at the end, which we all thought was going to be the end of NXT because they were going to draft people and a lot of people were not going to be. They never explained why the hell it was called that. Then they said the end of the beginning, which is like really fucking stupid. So, stupid ass name, but overall pretty good show. Andrade Cien Almas debuted against Ty Dillinger. Good match. Uh, People say that Nakamura and Austin Aries had the best match of the night, but honestly, these guys were just thrown in together, which wasn't a bad match, but I didn't like it as much as everybody else did. But the Revival and the American Alpha, the rematch was very fucking good. This is my match of the night for me. Asuka and Jax, this one actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as like now. if we had that match. But yeah, at the time, Nia Jax was actually built better. And then this had the steel cage match with Joe and Finn Balor. And fun fact, the Demon has been pinned before. If you don't believe me, watch this match. The only time you'll ever see Finn Balor Demon get pinned, um, ever. So if you want to see that, there's that. Again, good show. Um, Thankfully, it was the end of Balor and Finn, and the match was pretty short for a steel cage match. But I thought it was a great show. The undercard was a little bit much better than the upper card, but like I said, the show was pretty good. Next up, NXT Takeover Chicago, the first one. This was honestly, it had a potential of being even better than it was because we had Asuka, Nikki Cross, Ruby Riot, and Ember Moon. I remember me reviewing this show, and I said if we had that Fatal 4-Way, these would have been our new horsewomen. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Ember Moon got injured, so she was written off TV for a while. And then we just had this bland triple threat match. But imagine if we had that Fatal 4-Way, plus what we already got, which was Roderick Strong and Eric Young, which was a really good match. Uh, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, which started off Pete Dunne's incredible title run. Bobby Roode and Hideo Itami. Not a classic, but a pretty good NXT Championship match. And of course, AOP and DIY in a ladder match where it was mainly famous for Johnny Gargano saving Ciampa and then Ciampa turning on him, and it was DIY no more until 2018 or 2019, I should say. Um, so yeah, this one had a bunch of classic moments and a lot of good matches as well. So I can't really fault this show. If we had that Fatal 4-Way with the women, this would have been much higher. I guarantee you that. This probably would have been like top 10 for sure. 17, NXT Takeover Philadelphia. By the way, this one had my favorite opening with like Paul Heyman like talking because Philadelphia is the home of ECW, so it made sense for that to happen. This show was pretty great. We had uh, this was basically the extreme. They try to do extreme rules. I heard that Undisputed Era and AOP were supposed to have a steel cage match. That wasn't the case. We just had a regular 1-1 match, but they had a pretty solid match. No more Roderick Strong. Oh no, Roderick Strong wasn't part of the Undisputed Era. I was reading this. I was like, oh wait, this is wrong. They had Roderick Strong versus Tyler Bate. On like, I don't know why they didn't use that match. That would have been much better. Velveteen Dream and Cassius Ohno. Remember when Cassius Ohno used to be buried by everybody? This was famous for the 30-second knockout punch, which was pretty funny. So that was awesome for Dream being a good character. I hated the women's match, Ember Moon and Shayna Baszler. They should have just given it immediately to Shayna Baszler. None of this wait till Mania season. They should have just given it to her then and do the rematch later. Black and Cold in an Extreme Rules match. This was chaotic as hell, and I loved it. Sanity helps out Aleister Black, which was awesome. But one of my favorite NXT matches ever, Andrade Cien Almas versus Johnny Gargano for the NXT Championship. Fantastic work. The first 5-star match from Dave Meltzer since Money in the Bank 2011, Cena and Punk. So you could say that about the show. So it was just a pretty fantastic show. All around, pretty fun show to watch. Coming in at number 16. Ooh, we're getting into the War Games. WarGames 3. Despite having two of the best NXT matches ever, which were both takeover matches, really, I was more excited for the next night, which was Survivor Series, SmackDown versus Raw versus NXT. This was just kind of like a toss-in together show, just for the sake of having it, which I didn't have a problem with, but I guess it kind of worked out in the end. This is a good show. This was the one where Dakota Kai turned on Tegan Nox and she turns heel, and we have that epic spot where Io Shirai jumps that epic moonsault from the cage. We had a triple threat match to determine the number one contender to Adam Cole at Survivor Series. It was pretty obvious it was going to be Pete Dunne because both other guys were heels. We had a last minute change between Finn Balor and Johnny Gargano. We did Finn Balor and Matt Riddle instead, which means Dominic Dijakovic took Riddle's spot on the WarGames main event. And by the way, out of all the NXT Takeover, out of all the NXT WarGames matches, this is my favorite one. Ciampa versus the Undisputed Era. Ciampa, Lee, Dijakovic, and Kevin Owens. Yes, Kevin Owens after that awesome promo, like build, like where Triple H wanted Kevin Owens. I kind of wish Kevin Owens stuck around in NXT. That was like his home. That's where he should be. I don't know why they didn't do that. But, alright. But yeah, anyways, that match was fucking fantastic. I love the show. Those two matches, those two War Game matches alone, if you just watch those two, you're good. You don't need to watch the triple threat. It was pretty obvious that Dunn was going to win. And then Finn and Matt, it was alright. But they just needed something to fill up the card because Johnny Gargano was injured. If Johnny Gargano and Finn Balor happened on this show, plus the two War Game matches and the number one contenders match, this probably would have been number one, honest to God. That's how good this shit was. NXT Takeover Toronto 2 comes in at number 15. I really enjoyed the matches. I really enjoyed the show. I did not like some of the winners we got in this match. Street Profits defeated Undisputed Era. We were all convinced it was going to be the Undisputed Era once again. But they did something clever. They did the whole we pinned the wrong guy storyline, which works all the time if done right. So yeah, I really enjoyed it that they did that. That way we got a rematch later down the road. Io Shirai and Candice LeRae had an amazing singles match. Nobody talks about this match. It's a fucking classic. It's probably the most underrated match there is behind Undisputed Era and Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. Pete Dunne, Velveteen Dream, and Roderick Strong in a triple threat North American Championship match. This was my match of the night. The only thing that really ruined it for me was the winner, Velveteen Dream. Some people say it should have been Roderick Strong. I say it should have been Pete Dunne. Then at the NXT UK Takeover Cardiff, we do Pete Dunne and Velveteen Dream in a rematch, and then we do Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong on the takeover or on the NXT to the USA debut. That's what we should have done. I think it would have been cool to have Pete Dunne win because he was like the underdog of this match. So how badass would have been to see him win this one. Shayna Baszler defeated Mia Yim. They had nothing really for Shayna, so they just put her with Mia Yim, which is And then we had a 2 out of 3 falls match, or a 3 stages of hell match to be correct. Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano. First fall was 1-on-1. Then it was a street fight. Then it was a steel cage with a bunch of weapons. It's basically what the Asylum match should have had. I personally just would have gone with a street fight because that should have just been it. Or the steel cage, the hardcore steel cage. That's what I would have done. There wasn't no need to do another 2 out of 3 falls. We already seen that in a regular 2 out of 3 falls in New York, or Brooklyn 5, as I like to call it. But I still liked it. NXT Takeover Brooklyn 3 is next up on this list. This is number 14. Yes, number 14, everybody. This one had an amazing opening match with Andrade, or Johnny Gargano wanting to prove himself that he could be a good single star, same with Andrade. It had a pretty decent little story. And then they actually used a DIY shirt to distract Ciampa, or distract Gargano, which got Andrade the win and a future shot at the NXT Championship. That was pretty brilliant booking. We also had Aleister Black, Hideo Itami, and I believe Itami's last match in NXT. We also had Asuka and Ember Moon finally having a good classic match. What was the title match for the tag title match? It was AOP Insanity. And I like the trick that they did where we thought we were getting Alexander Wolf and Killian Dane. Instead, we got Alexander Wolf and Eric Young. Kind of tricked the AOP and really helped them out in the long run. And then they became tag team champions because they wanted to book Killian Dane as a single star, and I think they're still doing that now, so I love it. And then finally, the main event, Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Roode. The match itself wasn't good. It was a cool moment for McIntyre to win the NXT Championship. He didn't really need it. He just kind of needed to drop it to a baby or to a heel. He was basically a transitional champion. Drew McIntyre, unfortunately, will go down as the worst NXT champion by default. Um, but it's not that bad because look at Drew McIntyre now. He's main evented against Brock Lesnar. He's beaten Randy Orton at SummerSlam. He's held it for a good while, so can't really say Drew McIntyre was buried. But the best thing about this takeover, Adam Cole, baby. This was when Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish had matches with Aleister Black on at Takeover, but they finally team up, and then they had Adam Cole come out. That was awesome to see. So can't really complain there. This is the debut of what was undisputed. Next up, 13. Now we're getting to the earlier takeovers. One of my favorite early takeovers was NXT Takeover Rival. I miss when NXT was like its own thing. It didn't have to follow SummerSlam or WrestleMania or stuff like that. But this was still a good show. Hideo Itami beat Tyler Breeze in a pretty good match. Baron Corbin, when he was awesome, he beat Bull Dempsey before he was fat. In a no DQ match, solid match. Blake and Murphy, very underrated tag team, had a good match with the Lucha Dragons when they were awesome. And then Finn Balor and Adrian Neville had an amazing number one contenders match, showing that these guys are pretty fucking good in the ring. Then we had the infamous Fatal 4-Way for the Horsewoman Fatal 4-Way, the most famous one there is, so there's that. And then also this is a night where Kevin Owens beat Sami Zayn by knockout KO. See what they did there? That was pretty brilliant, and it was pretty cool that Kevin Owens won the NXT Championship pretty soon. It's not like Karrion Kross where it's like you could clearly tell they had a boner for Karrion Kross. Kevin Owens is not necessarily the typical WWE guy. He was just a badass that just wants the belt, so because it's good money for him and his family. Also, they're best friends, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So this was a brilliant booked match. So kudos for this takeover. I miss when takeovers were just its own thing, and this was like no different. I really love this takeover. Number 12, NXT Takeover WarGames, the first one. People say that they like the other one more. NXT Takeover 2, we'll get to that one. Part of the reason why this one was pretty low is because it had an amazing Fatal WarGames match, which was good, but this show also had Pete Dunne and Johnny Gargano on the pre-show technically, and then on the main show we had Lars Sullivan and Cassius Ohno. Like, no, don't do that. Put Pete Dunne and Johnny Gargano in the main card. That is a much must-see match. This would have been like Johnny Takeover, like at its fullest. And the match was 10 minutes long. I guarantee it would have been longer if it was on the main card. So there's that. And it also made Velveteen Dream a star, even though he lost to Aleister Black in a very weird storyline where it's like, say my name. And then he said Velveteen Dream at the end. He should have said Patrick Clark. That would have been much cooler. The vacant NXT Women's Championship match, Ember Moon won. The moment was good. The match, meh, take it or leave it. And it's a little disappointing because it actually had some pretty good names. Peyton Royce, Kairi Sane, and Nikki Cross in there. Andrade Cien Almas versus Drew McIntyre, which made Andrade the NXT champion. One of the most underrated NXT champions there are. He did a fantastic job as a champion, and he started here when he beat Drew McIntyre. Now, I know he lost it because of injury, but hell, he got it. He got the victory. And then the WarGames match, which was fantastic. I thought this match was going to suck because I like WarGames when it's just 2 teams, not 3 teams. But they did the best they could, so kudos for that. It was Undisputed Era versus AOP and Roderick Strong and Sanity. It was the return of WarGames. It was a fantastic match. People forget about this because we had other ones down the road. So, I don't know. You get what you get. And honestly, it was a good way to show off everybody when they were still irrelevant. So thank you, Triple H, for bringing back War Games. Number 11. I'm shocked it's this high because, yeah, this show was either. I mean, it had one of my favorite NXT Takeover matches of all time, and everything else was again pretty mishmash. War Raiders beating the Undisputed Era for the tag belts, which is another underrated match that you should check out. Matt Riddle and Cassius Ohno, which is it was actually not that bad of a match, but come on, it's Cassius Ohno losing all the time. Baszler and Bianca Belair. This was actually a pretty big, good build-up story. At the time, Bianca was undefeated. Shayna Baszler destroyed that. Ciampa and Aleister Black. If they had a false count anywhere match, that would have been much better because they were outside a lot, and that would have worked to their advantage. But I was happy with the match we got. But the match that everybody loved was Johnny Gargano and Ricochet. This was the last fantastic Ricochet match we got in. Oh man, I miss when Ricochet was this awesome. But yeah, he lost to Johnny Gargano in a classic match, and I like how the match ended. It was a very unique ending. It didn't end with like a big finisher spot. It actually ended with like just like one kick to the head or one knockout to the head. That was a great part of Johnny Gargano. Clearly shows that this guy could tell a good story in the ring. That's why he's called Johnny Takeover. Now we move on to the top 10. Coming in at number 10 is NXT Takeover 25. Yes, NXT Takeover 25. I was debating between this and the next one, but yeah, 25 had to do it for me because, yeah, this one had, I didn't like that they vacated the NXT Tag Team Championship because the War Raiders were going to Raw. I would have had them drop it here in a Fatal 4-Way, and then they could go to Raw, because it was kind of unnecessary to put Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch because they went nowhere. The Forgotten Sons, I saw them going somewhere at the time. Undisputed Era made sense, and the Street Profits, of course, which they won. Kudos for the Street Profits to finally break in after all those years of not winning the belts. They finally got them. It was awesome. Matt Riddle beat Roderick Strong in a very underrated match again. NXT has a lot of underrated matches. You definitely need to check these out. It was the best Cole and Gargano match, which was great. I really loved it. I really like it a lot. This is my favorite out of the Cole Gargano matches that they got. This is just a plain old match. It wasn't super spot festy. They did a good job of telling the story and not just being full of finishers. They actually sold on this match, so that was great. Shayna Baszler versus Io Shirai, which led to Io's heel turn, which made her the star that she is today, and the return of Mr. Selfie, Tyler Breeze, just like that. Tyler Breeze and Velveteen Dream, that just screams dream match. You could tell Tyler Breeze was just trying to build himself up again for the first time in years. So I like that they gave Tyler Breeze a chance to show himself off again. And this was another great, amazing match. Number 9, NXT Takeover. We start where it all began. The very first Takeover. This was a fantastic show. This one was like the one that showed us that Tyler Breeze and Sami Zayn can have a classic. I overrated the match myself. I gave it 5 stars at the time. It's not that great, but it was pretty fucking fantastic. And it just showed that like characters can happen in the indies. Like this was when NXT was like at its peak, when it was like just a hidden gem. Now it's this big thing, which I like, but I really missed NXT when it was just low key. The best Natalia Charlotte match ever before they like gave us a billion on Raw and SmackDown. This is the best one with Ric Flair and Bret Hart in each corner. Adrian Neville and Tyson Kidd had a classic, showing that Tyson Kidd could be a legit player. He is great on the mic and great in the ring. So yeah, unfortunately he's injured. There's talks of him coming back. Who knows if that's true, but it's great. And oh yeah, Ascension beat El Local and Kalisto and aka Ricardo Rodriguez, who cares? And Camacho lost to Adam Rose. Remember that guy? Fuck Adam Rose. Oh, hiccup. Number 8, NXT Takeover Brooklyn. Yes, I was moving them around just now. I was like, which one do I want next? I went with Brooklyn. This one's more famous because this one made me cry for one match. You know which one it is. Sasha Banks and Bailey, when they actually wanted to give us those matches. That match was such an emotional roller coaster because Bailey was like, she wasn't seen as like a top talent, but like compared to the other horsewomen, this was awesome. And my favorite moment was when they broke kayfabe and they all showed up with four. That was just a fantastic moment and a fantastic match. This was my favorite match of 2015. I remember I said this was the number one match. It really was, and it showed that the women have made it and they have the talent to back it up. Everything else on the card, we have the returning Jushin Thunder Liger, or the debuting Jushin Thunder Liger, as if he never competed in WWE before. So that was great. He beat Tyler Breeze in a pretty good match. The Vaudevillains, when they were great, they beat Blake and Murphy. Remember Blue Pants? That girl was awesome. She got over by just having a silly name and a dumb theme song, but it got over and I liked it for that. Apollo Crews debuted against Ty Dillinger when he was a nobody. Now he's Sean Spears. Samoa Joe and Baron Corbin did the best they could, but at the time Baron Corbin wasn't as skilled as he was like in 2016. And we had an amazing ladder match with Kevin Owens and Finn Balor for the NXT Championship. So overall, this is a fantastic show. This is the first time NXT Takeover felt like WrestleMania, and this is the first Takeover where they went outside of Orlando. So props for that. So that is insane that it's number 8. But number 7, NXT Takeover WarGames II. The mid card, the undercard was very good, and the WarGames match was the weakest. Yes, I gotta be honest. It's my least favorite WarGames match out of the ones we got in NXT. It really was because it was just pretty spot festy, no blood, and I didn't like that all the champions were there, and it wasn't like a winner take all. That would have been pretty cool. Winner take all. That way, you didn't know who the hell was gonna win, even though it could have been a little obvious. But they should have done that. But the undercard I liked a lot more than I did the WarGames match, I'm being honest. Matt Riddle squash catches on in like 6 seconds. Baszler beat Kairi Sane in the finale to their feud, which was good, which debuted Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir. Aleister Black beat Johnny Gargano in another classic from Johnny Takeover. And Tommaso Ciampa defended the belt against the Velveteen Dream before he was alleged for being a madman. So, anyways, this was a great takeover. Really enjoyed it. One of my, yeah, when you can have the mid card be just as better than the WarGames match, and nothing against that particular WarGames match, is just my least favorite personally. But yeah, that is how good that show was. Next up, NXT Takeover Brooklyn 4. Yes, this is the final Brooklyn one. And this one was my favorite because it had all the great ones. Even the matches that weren't shown, like Pete Dunne and Zach Gibson, that was a great match. But anyways, we also had the finale to the Mustache Mountain and the Undisputed Era, the most underrated trilogy there is in ever. It's rare to find a tag team trilogy that works other than, of course, the TLC matches with Hardys, Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. So, but yeah, this is a very good one. I highly recommend you guys to watch this match. Not their best match, but pretty darn close. Velveteen Dream beat EC3. It was a good build, but the match itself was kind of a letdown. Ricochet beat Adam Cole for the North American Championship in a very good match. This showed that Adam Cole could be more than just like an extreme wrestler. Like, Adam Cole had personality, he had charisma, but this was like his defining match as a singles competitor. Kairi Sane beat Shayna Baszler, but then she lost it to Evolution. This is a really good match. Highly recommend it. And even though this is the weakest one, it was still a fantastic one. But Ciampa Gargano, last man standing. I didn't like the finish of Johnny Gargano getting too angry, and then he gets distracted and he causes himself to lose the belt. I get that it was good heel heat for Tommaso Ciampa, but it really made Johnny Gargano look like an idiot. Anyways, even though that match had a dumb finish, it was still a great match. And overall, the show was fantastic. Really recommend it. Number 5, NXT Takeover, Our Evolution. This had the debut of Kevin Owens defeating CJ Parker, aka Juice Robinson. Um, the first Charlotte and Sasha match that mattered, which is another great match. The debut of the Demon Finn Balor when he teamed up with Hideo Itami to beat the Ascension. Lucha Dragons versus the Vaudevillains in a very good match. Baron Corbin when he was just squashing people. He squashed Ty Dillinger, and then they had a face-off against Bull Dempsey for a future feud, which is awesome. And the main event, Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville. This was a fucking great match. Just like this is how you build a babyface match. The cocky champion that is always on top, and the guy who just wants to be at the top. This is the brilliant way to build a babyface match, and no one talks about this match anymore, obviously, because Pac went to AEW and Sami Zayn is MIA. But yeah, this was a good match. And then the cliffhanger with Kevin Owens turning on Sami Zayn. Brilliant work of art. I love this show. Honestly, this is like the one that... This is the first one that felt like a big deal, these takeovers. So, props for that. New York, aka Brooklyn 5 as I like to call it. NXT TakeOver New York. This is the one for WrestleMania season. WrestleMania 35, I believe. Yes. This one had... the plan was... Get this. It was supposed to be... freaking Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa for the NXT Championship, but he got injured. So then they did Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano, which began their feud, and which was an awesome build-up with the little time they got. And Johnny Gargano had his big moment. Yes, Adam Cole wins it later, but that's besides the point. Johnny Gargano got his moment, and I am proud that he got his moment. And it was a great match. I like how the second fall ended immediately after the first fall, and then that last fall was fucking brilliant. And incredibly enough, this was not the match of the night for me. For me, that would be Walter and Pete Dunne. Just a last minute thrown together match. Well, not the last minute thrown together. It actually had a build up, but it wasn't supposed to take place at this takeover. It was supposed to take place on UK, but they kind of needed to fill up the card, so they gave us this. We also had the War Raiders beat Aleister Black and Ricochet for the NXT Tag Team Championship. This was a little random because Aleister Black and Ricochet, I never understood that tag team. It was just two guys thrown in together. But this was their farewell to all four of them, and they did a fantastic job. Matt Riddle and Velveteen Dream had a very underrated classic for the North American Championship. This kind of felt like an IC title match, which is very good. So there's that. And then the Fatal 4-Way for the NXT Women's Championship. Baszler, Belair, Shirai, Sane. I didn't like it, especially because Shayna Baszler really choked out Bianca Belair, which was like, whoa, chill, woman. So, yeah, that was a little fucked up. But anyways, other than that, it was pretty good. Top 3, everybody. NXT TakeOver Portland. I remember people said this was going to be the best takeover ever when they just saw the card. Just by looking at the card, people thought this was going to be the best takeover ever. Some people say that. I'm not one of those people, but it's pretty damn close. It's number 3. This thing had Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic in a very good match, showing both types of... This redefined the big man skills. Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox in a street fight, which was great build-up, and a debut Raquel Gonzalez. We finally got Gargano and Finn Balor, with Finn Balor winning, which is awesome. Rhea Ripley and Belair really was only famous for Charlotte accepting Ripley's challenge at WrestleMania, which is really all I could ask for. Broserweights got the tag team belt against the Undisputed Era. This is officially Undisputed Era's final reign. Okay. And they gave us Cole and Ciampa, which I was surprised they had a very good chemistry. There should have been no disqualification, but I understand why they didn't do it. They had a bunch of endings with it felt like an NWO match when everybody just interfered, and then even though they interfered, the babyface still loses because Gargano turns heel. This time we did Ciampa Gargano, Ciampa face, Gargano heel. Pretty smart. I like it. I like it a lot. So, kudos for that. Number 2, and I'm losing my voice. Number 2 is NXT Takeover Dallas. So you kind of guess what number one is, but NXT Takeover Dallas is the first takeover to be during WrestleMania season, and they knocked it out of the park. Even though, yes, we got Balor and Joe, this one actually was my favorite one, even though it had the bloody finish and a stupid ending. It was honestly my favorite one just because it had color, and they had my favorite Demon Finn Balor entrance with the chainsaw. Uh, Tribute to Chainsaw Charlie, aka Terry Funk. This began Asuka's epic title reign when she beat Bayley, which is another awesome thing that happened. Austin Aries debuted against Baron Corbin, sending Baron Corbin to the main roster. American Alpha and the Revival. This is the first time the tag team division felt like legit, thanks to the Revival. Convenient name. And yeah, I loved it every second about this match, but the number one match was the Japan match that we got. Shinsuke Nakamura and Sami Zayn. This was supposed to be Shinsuke Nakamura kind of like learning as a WWE wrestler. No, he wrestled like he was in New Japan, and I give it a lot of respect for that. Yeah. To this day, people say Nakamura's debut to NXT was the best match or the best debuting match for any wrestler in the WWE or NXT ever. And it's pretty arguable, it's pretty true, and it's pretty disappointing that Nakamura went nowhere. Especially now he's a tag team champion with Cesaro, which is pretty random. What is with Cesaro and tag teams? Like, can they find something good for this guy? Shit. But anyways, this match alone could have like just been the reason for it. Big props for that. But number one, this is almost everybody's number one, but number one is NXT TakeOver New Orleans. Everything about this show is great. The matches, the spectacle, the cliffhangers, the results. Everybody who was supposed to go over went over, and they did a good job. The best like multi-man ladder match ever. Adam Cole, EC3, Killian Day, Lars Sullivan, Ricochet, and the Velveteen Dream. Any one of these guys could have won, but they gave it to Adam Cole. Which, at the long run, I was like, all right, that makes sense. And I like that he didn't take a lot of bumps. He was hiding like a heel, kind of like Edge and Christian. When they were in the TLC matches, he was kind of like the one not taking as many bumps, which worked to its advantage because that is how a heel is supposed to work, not taking that many bumps. That was great booking. I like that. And this showed off a lot of great talent from everybody. I like that moment when EC3 went, EC3, baby, and Adam Cole loses it. Killian Day and Lars Sullivan were the big guys that were just beating the crap out of each other, so we need some big guys in this match. And then Ricochet debuted, as well as EC3. And the Velveteen Dream is just being awesome, being himself. Ember Moon and Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler finally won the belt, so I can't argue with that. Famously enough, Roderick Strong turned heel against Pete Dunne in the Tag Team Championship Dusty Rhodes Classic, which made Roderick Strong officially join the Undisputed Era, which is awesome because it was kind of cliche at this point to have a 3-team stable. Like, we already had 3MB, New Day, Shield. Adding a fourth guy to that stable was awesome. It made sense, and it was something new, something that I was going to look forward to because Roderick Strong, who is a great wrestler, needed some character development, and to this day I could say that him joining the Undisputed Era is the best thing to ever happen in his career as a character, not a wrestler. Aleister Black and Almas had a year-long rematch. This time Aleister Black was facing for the NXT Championship. I like that they pulled the story of trying to eliminate Selena Vega. So Aleister Black did the best he can with that, so kudos for that. Brilliant booking. And finally, the unsanctioned match. If since Gargano won, he reinstates into NXT. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa had a year-long build. This was just a fantastic story, fantastic build. And it was so great that it was the last match because this is the only match people gave a shit about. Not that the other things suck, but it's just like, imagine if you have your second favorite cake right here, and then next to it is your favorite cake, and then you eat both. That's how that felt like. Fantastic show, fantastic build. Like, honestly, this is better than WrestleMania that year, WrestleMania 34. And even that card had potential, but yeah, this was our WrestleMania at the time, and this is our takeover. So, anyways, it's me, the ALE Double X Prince. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And until then, I'm out.